Thank you so much for joining us for our City Talk panel discussion for technical careers in city government. So I just wanted to give you guys a little housekeeping rules as you're entering in. You may notice that you're either muted upon entry, and if you're not, please do mute yourself. We want to be able that everyone will be able to hear throughout the presentation, the panelists as well as the presenters. So you'll be muted upon entry. If you have any questions, technical difficulties, please do utilize the chat option. If you don't already have it on the right-hand side of your screen, you can look at the bottom. It will say chat, and you could just click there and send us any questions or like any type of audio difficulties you're having, and we'll respond to you according. A majority of the questions that you guys have, you can definitely ask towards the end of the presentation. We'll have it as well. And a copy of the slides and additional resources will be shared with you after this session, okay? So thank you guys for joining us today. We'll get started in a little bit. We know we're supposed to have about over 200 people, so we're giving people a little time to come on in, and we'll get started in a little bit. Thank you so much. I might be muted. Hayden, if you see your video and you hover over it, there's an option to mute or unmute yourself. There should be an option to mute or unmute yourself. But I think Gavisker is saying that you already muted upon entry anyway. Gavisker, good to go? You want me to get started now?
Let's do it.
Okay, awesome. So thank you everyone who's entering in. I'm looking at the participants numbers, they're over 200. Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you so much panelists for joining us today, and Gavisker for coordinating with us to host this wonderful event. Welcome everyone to the City Talk panel discussion for technical careers in city government. So as you're entering into the room, you'll find that you are muted upon entry. This is just to avoid any type of background noise, so that way you're able to hear the presenters as well as the panelists during this session. If you have any questions to ask us, please utilize the chat option. If you don't already have it open on your right-hand side of your screen, you can look at the bottom. There's a chat option, just select that, and you can access any questions. If you're having technical difficulties, if you don't understand something, just put in the chat and we'll respond accordingly. A majority of the questions will be answered towards the end, as we do have a Q&A section. I'm pretty sure some of you may want to ask the panelists questions after we go through the discussion with them. And after this session, we will also provide you guys slides, the slides to this presentation, as well as additional resources. So thank you. Next slide. So thank you again, guys, for joining us for this presentation. It was brought to you by the Office of Citywide Equity and Inclusion, and all agencies, in case you guys didn't know, have a commissioner. For our agency, Department of Citywide Administrative Services, our commissioner is Lizette Camillo. I want to take this time right now to see if Gab wanted to say a few words before we get into the presentation.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. This is Gavaskar Reed from the Career and Technical Education Department with the New York City Department of Education. I want to wish everyone a happy Black History Month, happy CTE Month, happy Career Exploration Month as well. And by the way, this event is actually something managed from the ground up, because a lot of schools have expressed some interest in how exactly do we get our kids to know more about careers and opportunities when it comes to the city agencies, because this is a field that it's very, very obscure to a lot of people, to a lot of kids, to a lot of school staff. So I'm very grateful to our partners at DCAS and the various participating city agencies today. Hopefully you guys will have a wonderful session. I'm really, really encouraging you to use the chat box and any sort of questions and comments that come up. This is your opportunity to have them addressed firsthand from these professionals. And by the way, if there's any sort of stigma or stereotype out there about city workers not being that competent, I'm telling you, we're going to dismantle that today, because you are amongst some of the most proficient workers that New York City has to offer. I'm very, very grateful and humbled to be amongst this very fine cast. And hopefully you will have some more enlightenment about different career opportunities that are available to you. So thank you and enjoy the session.
Always inspirational, Gavister. Thank you so much. So we're going to go into the next slide, John. All right, so as Gavister had just a moment ago revealed to you, we definitely want to let you know the purpose of today's discussion is basically to enlighten you about the different technical careers that exist within city government, and kind of just get a glimpse of the day-to-day of the people who work within these titles. I will say that before I entered into the city, I really didn't know what a civil engineer did. It's not until I started working for the city when I actually got a little firsthand glimpse of what they do. And when we're younger, these are not necessarily things we would go firsthand searching for. So we're kind of bringing the information to you, because if you get it early, you can start searching and looking and seeing the things that you can do to, start your path on getting into something like civil engineering, or if you want to be a project manager. I'm so grateful that the panelists are here today to actually provide you some insight as to what they do on a daily basis, to hopefully inspire some of you that may want to get into these career paths one day. Also, the purpose of this discussion is to also introduce you to different agencies in case you may not know that they exist. A lot of the times people tend to remember the uniform titles like firefighter and NYPD because we see them all over the place, but believe it or not, there's city employees all over you, all around you, basically, from the person who's picking up the garbage to the person who's fixing the sidewalks, the person building the buildings, or it could even be the school nurse inside of your school right now. These are city employees and they're all around you. So we want you to definitely enlighten you and let you know that, there's a lot of city agencies. It's about 80 plus, which you will go into in the presentation. So that's the purpose of today, to kind of just give you a scope of the different careers you can have within city government, specifically for this event, technical careers, and to enlighten you on how many agencies we do have. Next slide. So today, we do know that we're here to talk about technical careers within city government, but we also, as Gav had mentioned, want to spotlight that this is Black History Month. So we are going to definitely go into a discussion pertaining to some people related to Black history. We're going to look at New York City government at a glance. We're going to talk about pathways into city government, the different pathways, and then we're going to go into our City Talk panel discussion with our panelists that have graciously offered to speak on their day-to-day within their office and their agencies. And then after that, it's all about you attendees. It's your time to ask your questions and get your answers. I know that some of these panelists are going to leave you with, oh my goodness, how did you do this? How did you that? And I hope that you guys become enlightened by what they have to say from their message and their journey. And if there was any type of struggles, I hope that they're able to provide you some information so to help guide you if you decide you want to take that same career path. And just a little fun fact before we get into the next slide. On the right-hand side, you see that we have a picture of a building. This is actually the DCAS headquarters. This is where we reside. It is actually named the David N. Dinkins Building. He was the first African-American mayor. So I think it was a great time to bring him up in New York City. And I wanted to mention that to you because we're actually going to discuss him right now. And at this time, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, John Bonner. Mr. Bonner, are you available?
Thank you, Stacey. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And like Gav had mentioned earlier, we are recognizing Career and Technical Education Month as well as Career Exploration Month. But also want to make known that today, this is February, and we want to celebrate Black History Month. And like Stacey just mentioned, we always talk about our building being renamed after David N. Dinkins. But who was David N. Dinkins? And it's a great time for us to really spotlight who he is. I mean, who he was. He was New York City's first African American mayor. Okay, our building was named after him on October 15th, 2015. But during his tenure, during his legacy between 1990 and 1993, he selected the first Puerto Rican fire commissioner. He selected the Black openly gay psychiatrist as the mental health commissioner. He selected the Black veteran as the police, commissioner during his tenure. And during his legacy, he was very instrumental and very committed to focusing on building housing, improving healthcare, and responding to the concerns of not only women, but with people with disabilities, gay men and lesbians, the aged, and minorities. And it's really fitting for us to definitely recognize him, because we always talk about that picture, that is our headquarters, but I really want people to know who David N. Dinkins was. A couple of other contributors that we definitely want to talk about during Black History Month, and the reason we chose some of them, there's some history behind them, like Charles Richard Drew. Now, if you don't know about DCAS, DCAS is very instrumental in our blood donors program. I've been donating blood with them for over 15 years. I think I donated somewhere in the realm of 8 gallons of blood. And Charles Richard Drew was an African-American surgeon who developed ways to use and preserve blood plasma that helped save lives during World War II, and later became that model that we use for the blood banks. He's also known as the father of blood banks. And Drew was also created with the first blood mobile. George Washington Carver, one of my favorite that I've written about so many times when I was in high school, was born enslaved and went on to become one of the most prominent scientists and inventors of his time, as well as a teacher at the Tuskegee, Institute. Carver, devised over 100 products using one major crop, the peanut, which included dyes, plastics, gasoline. So great. These are some of the people that you should definitely write about if you're ever thinking about writing during Black History Month, or just to learn more about them. There are some other contributors that I definitely want to recognize. And the reason why I picked Katherine Johnson is, yes, I watched Hidden Figures last week with my daughter, who's 8 years old. And it was very nice for her to see a prominent woman, Black woman, who was a mathematician, who worked at NASA. And if you ever watch the movie, you see how instrumental Katherine Johnson was in calculating the flight plan for Alan Shepard, who was the first American in space. And then later, went on to check critical flight path calculations for Apollo 13. And of course, one of my other favorites that I like is Percy, Levon Julian, who was the inventor of the birth control pill. Yes, very instrumental. But also because we work with a lot of veterans, I always like to tie things around veterans as well. And during World War II, the fire extinguishing Afro foam, that was the U.S. Navy's bean suit, was Percy Levon Julian's brainchild. This soy protein foam was used to smother oil and gasoline fires that erupted on aircraft carriers before the flames could engulf the ships, which saved countless American lives during World War II. So these are just some people that I just wanted to recognize during our Black History Month. And of course, I'm definitely going to turn it on to my colleague, Raymond Cruz, who is a veteran as well. And I'm glad that we can segue into it. He's going to take on to the rest of this presentation with some of the stuff with our career paths, a little glance of New York City. And with that, Raymond, I'm proud to pass it over to you.
Thank you, John. So welcome everyone. Happy Black History Month. Now we're gonna take a look at New York City government at a glance. So a lot of people don't know these facts I'm gonna talk to you about right now. Even myself, even working for the city, I didn't realize that there are over 80 city agencies. And at this point, over 300,000 city employees. Another thing, a point of reference is that a lot of people don't know that there's so many opportunities and occupations in city government. There's over 2,000 different job titles. And there's many programs in the city, over 500. Some of them you're very well aware of, such as Vision Zero, which is always reducing the speed limit, for safety for pedestrians and for children around schools. Or the New York City Well program, which was inspired by Charlene McRae, the mayor's wife, for mental health issues and assistance. And there's also many more programs in the city of New York that you can actually be involved in, even such as you can see on the streets, and you can see that where you can plug in and charge up your phones, or even make a phone call. Those things and more. So why? This is why. Those who work for the city of New York, we invest in our communities. We like to help improve the lives of others, even by the work that we're doing today. We can also see the result of our work and the effect that it has on others. We like to express that there's job security and opportunity to grow a career. There's a great work-life balance and let's block and great benefits in the city of New York. Here's a fun fact. City employees serve 8.6 million New Yorkers and their visitors on a daily basis. Next. So let's talk about New York City careers. As you're looking at these pop-ups, we're just doing this so to give you an idea of what you could be doing in a career in New York City. About what you want to do. It could be arts and culture, computer science, records management, engineering. We pretty much have an agency that does all different types of work 24/7. That's why the city doesn't sleep. So we always ask everyone, think about what you want to do. There's probably going to be a job available or in New York City. There are New York City communities also. We like people to think about who you want to serve. Who are your customers? I mean, we are what we consider ourselves as civil servants. You know, we serve the communities. You could be working for the city and helping someone in your own neighborhood. Just a few examples that are here. We're showing you pictures of people who are elderly. We have homeless people, children, and animals. So the city has a broad range of services that we provide to the public. You could be considering a career in the Administration for Children's Services, or for the Department for the Aging, or for the Department for the Homeless. So always think about who your customers are. A lot of people don't know about the 80+ city agencies. Here's just a few of them on this slide. So you might want to have an interest in the police department or correction officers, but you know, there's many other city agencies. Think about who you want to work with. I mean, every day we see sanitation workers working on the streets, or people working in the parks department. You know, you'd be surprised at what you could be involved in doing that could be providing a good service for the city of New York. Here are the agencies that we're representing today. As you can see, the Department of Design and Construction, New York City Department of Information Technology and Telecommunications, the Department of Transportation, Department of Environmental Protection, the Department of Buildings, and the Landmarks and Preservation Commission. So there are many career paths across the city of New York. And if this is you, this is how we can explain this. Next, number one, for those who have no educational experience, there's about over 14 different occupations that you could be involved in and start a career. Clerical aide, or city park worker, or school crossing guard. Some of these titles, as I'm mentioning them, you may realize that you actually see these people on a daily basis when school is in. Next will be number two, high school diploma, where we have over 25 different types of occupations that you can seek as a career. Dental assistant, clerical associate, traffic enforcement agent. Also, you can see some of these titles on a daily basis. Number three, you're enrolled in a college or university. There's over 200 different opportunities, internships, fellowships, college aid positions, and the like. And next will be number four. If you've graduated from a college or university, there's over 2,000 different opportunities, such as fellowships, entry-level titles. Some of them require little to no experience. Examples would be civil engineer, or an intern, or staff analyst trainee, or a child protective specialist. Next. So here are some ways to start a New York City career. We have internships. Applicants can be in high school or college. Also, fellowships. Applicants must have graduated with a bachelor's degree in the last 2 years at the time of the application. On a daily basis, our website is available, nyc.gov/jobs, where you can look for current job openings. And then on a monthly basis, you can apply for applications for exams at nyc.gov/exams. Next. So I'm going to now hand over the presentation to my Executive Director of the Office of Citywide Recruitment, Ms. Kadian Otar. Kadian?
Thank you, Ray. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm already seeing the chat lighting up with like, hey, do they have jobs for criminal justice? Do they have jobs for welding? We have it all. Just like Ray just mentioned, the city, over 2,000 titles. So whatever it is that you want to do, you want to be a puppeteer? We have it, right? So you can come work for us. So now what we'll do is to introduce you to a few of our agencies and some of their representatives to talk about the different jobs that they do within their agency, to maybe open up your minds to other things that you can do within city government. As Ray mentioned, my name is Kadian Asar. I am the Executive Director in the Office of Citywide Recruitment. And on the panel, I'll have with me Joseph Ventura, who's the Assistant Commissioner of Enforcement Inspections with the Department of Buildings. I have Matthew Longo, who's the Project Manager, Youth and Industry Engagement for the Department of Buildings. And yes, right, thank you. We have Michelle Cook, who is the 311 CIO and Acting Associate Commissioner for Customer Service in the Department of Information Technology and Telecommunications, doing double work. Yes, you are. We have Rochelle Bahala, who is a Senior Project Manager at the Department of Transportation. We also have Caroline Passion, who is the Senior Landmarks Preservationist and Historic at the Landmark Preservation Commission. And we have Farhan Abdullah, who is the Director of Production Support Services and the Department of Environmental Protection. And last but not least, we have Jane Bailey, PE, who is the Deputy Program Director at the Department of Design and Construction. And don't worry, we are going to stop sharing this screen so you can see everybody's lovely faces, and you will have the opportunity to ask them all questions as we go along. So let's do, first question that I'd like to ask the panelists is to tell us about your current role, your agency, and how long you have been working for the city. And we will start with Jade.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks for coming out and participating in this virtually. I work for the Department of Design and Construction. I've been working there for almost 8 years now. It's not the first place I've worked. I came from private sector before joining the city. And I started out as a project manager. I'm also a civil engineer by background. And I manage an array of different construction and design projects on behalf of the city. Typically, our agency manages the construction and design of things like libraries and firehouses and cultural institutions such as like museums and dance theaters, et cetera. So it's very exciting work. I was recently promoted to Deputy Program Director of the Culturals Division. So we only focus on dance theaters and museums and art, the natural history and things like that. So that's my forte. So I have a team that is focused on delivering design and construction across the city. And all of our projects are in the city. I'm in the Public Buildings Division. We also have a division for infrastructure. So that's everything underground that you don't see. So that's all of your utilities and water. You may have seen DDC tearing up the roads in your neighborhood. Trust me, we're trying to get out of there and improve the situation so you can mitigate flooding and things like that, and so that things can run properly. So I'll hand the mic over to the next person, or back to Kadian.
Thank you, Jade. Rochelle, if you can tell us a little bit about your current role, your agency, and how long you've been with the city.
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. My name is Rochelle. I'm a senior project manager at the Department of Transportation. So if you don't know, Department of Transportation, not like the MTA, Department of Transportation focuses on surface transportation. So if you think of everything from roads to sidewalks to bridges, that's DOT. Oh, and also the Staten Island Ferry, that's DOT. So in my current role, I'm on the school safety team, and it's a Vision Zero program. So that means that we're dedicated to reducing fatalities in New York City caused, essentially traffic fatalities in New York City. I'm focused in schools. specifically. And we, on our team, we look at streets around schools and find ways to make them safer, to calm traffic, to improve pedestrian facilities, and to introduce cycling facilities for school-aged students. So my background is in landscape architecture, which is a technical field, but it is highly artistic. Landscape architecture to me was too technical. I'm definitely more of a people person. So even though I have the skills really help me advance in my career. But at the end of the day, all I want to do is talk to people. So if I'm able to work in CAD and go outside and measure traffic counts, at the end of the day, at least I got to have a meeting and I'm happy. So I kind of blend my skills and my interests every day.
Thank you very much, Rochelle. And Farhan, if you can tell us a little bit about your current role, your agency, and how long you've been with the city.
Yep, thank you so much, Katie. And I'm excited to be here, share some of my experience with everybody. So I have been with City of New York since 2006. I started out as a part-time employee with the retirement system, NYSERS, that agency that oversees the employees' retirement and pension system. I then moved to New York City Department of Environmental Protection, the agency that's responsible for managing the country's one of the largest water supply system in the country. And I have been here since 2007, and I moved in as a computer technician. So today, I've been in different roles, but today I currently manage a team supporting the agency's IT infrastructure. So my core responsibilities includes making sure all IT systems and services are up and running 24/7 for both our internal and external customers. The agency has about 6,000 employees. We have 100+ remote offices. We have multiple data centers. And some of the other responsibilities include finding opportunities in emerging technologies to solve business problems. Some of the areas are data analytics, data collaborations, use cases with process automation, machine learning, augmented reality, and drones. So it's pretty exciting to be here with DEP and working for the last 13 years.
Thank you so much. And next we will go with Caroline. If you can tell us a little bit about your role, your agency, and how long you've been with the city.
Hi everyone. So I work for the Landmarks Preservation Commission. I, like Farhan, has been with Landmarks, working for the City of New York since 2006. And I did originally come from the private sector in a totally different background. But the Landmarks Preservation Commission is the largest municipal agency, preservation agency in the entire country. And what we do is that we're responsible for protecting New York City's historically, architecturally, and culturally significant buildings and regulating them. And for example, you would see like the Empire State Building, the Brooklyn Bridge, Central Park. Those are all designated landmarks that we regulate. But we also have designated cultural landmarks. So buildings that are culturally significant, such as the Stonewall Inn. So we recognize the LGBTQ significance to our city, and even the James Baldwin House. I'm sure maybe some of you have read his books, and his house is an individual landmark. And so what I do, I work in the preservation department at Landmarks, and I review drawings. I review drawings to see what is being proposed on the interior as well as the exterior. We review what individual homeowners are proposing at their facades. A lot of our applicants, if they have large apartment buildings, they file with Department of Buildings to get their permit, but they have to apply with us first. And I also, another hat that I wear is that I'm a grant coordinator with our Historic Preservation Grant Program. And it's a way of providing a grant to low and moderate income homeowners in historic districts.
Thank you, Caroline. And then we will go with Michelle. Michelle, you can introduce yourself.
Sure, Michelle Koch. So I do have two roles, as mentioned before. I'm the Chief Information Officer for NYC 311. I'm sure everyone is familiar with 311. 311 provides service for New York City constituents for all the different agencies within New York City. I also I am the acting associate commissioner for New York City DO-IT, which is Department of Information Technology and Communications. It's a long one. We always say DO-IT. Basically heading up our customer service help desk. Basically, we provide service for a number of the city agencies based on infrastructure that they may have with us. And people will call in to us to ask us for help. So we provide that service to them. I've been with the city now since 2006 also. I started as a system admin on a support desk for 311. I've grown in roles, many different roles to where I am now. It's been an interesting journey, and I'd like to share that with you all, today.
Thank you, Michelle. And Joseph, can you tell us a little bit about your current role, your agency, and how long you've been with the city?
Sure. Thank you guys for joining. My name is Joe Ventura. I am the Assistant Commissioner for the Enforcement Inspections Division within the Bureau of Enforcement for the Department of Buildings. I have been with the city for 14 years, and I started off with the city actually as a senior zoning officer. In my current role, I am more in a policy making decision as it pertains to enforcement actions on behalf of the Department of Buildings. My responsibilities include everything from, well, most of my responsibilities, I should say now, are just meetings all day long. I don't get to do the fun stuff like I used to anymore, which is going in the field and doing investigations and inspections. I am responsible for several of the enforcement units within the Bureau of Enforcement, which includes, but is not limited to, the construction units, the plumbing enforcement units, special operations units, the elevators units, boilers units, administrations for elevators and boilers, Mayor's Office of Special Enforcement, which is division of the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, and several of the other units in the agency. I have to say that it has been truly a rewarding career working for Department of Buildings and on the city. This is actually my first and only city job. I don't plan on having any others.
That's what we love to hear. When you find what you like to do, you stay there, right? You have the opportunities, so it's great. And of course, we have a special treat where we have a few other panelists from DOB. Just a quick shout out. If Matthew can, say hello and a little bit about what you do and how long you've been with the city.
I've worked with the Department of Buildings for a little over 2 years now. I run the youth program, so we set up a number of programs for some of the students who are on this call. Anthony is in our Youth Leadership Council currently. I see a number of students from City Polytechnic who we've had in our enrichment programs. So we run programs for both high school students and college students, and we have programs for CUNY students and then students from all colleges, and really a number of different interesting initiatives that have been growing each semester. It gets more and more unwieldy, but we work with about 50 students through our youth programs at any given point.
Thank you, Matthew. And Rachel?
Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel, and I'm a recruitment assistant at the New York City Department of Buildings. I recruit inspectors for inspectorial titles. I also go to different colleges throughout the New York area to recruit students for our internship programs and other programs. I also do a lot of outreach to other communities for recruiting. For example, I do a lot of veterans outreach, reaching out to veterans who are looking to re-enter the workforce. I also reach out to a lot of female-oriented groups to bring more women into the construction industry. I love the fact that I get to work with students and talk to individuals about the agency. From my personal experience, I started off as an intern at the Department of Buildings. I've been with the Department of Buildings since 2014, and this coming April will be my 7th year in city service.
Thank you. And it's great to see that, you can start out you know, from the entry level and move your way up into the agency. And thank you all for sharing a little bit about the typical duties that you performed. We know that some of the agencies mentioned here, you know, people are not familiar with them, right? Because I'm seeing in the chat people are looking for specific things. If you can share, what is something unique about your agency that you think the audience should know? And we'll start with you, Joseph. If you prefer Joe, I'll call you Joe as well.
That's fine. If I had to share something unique about my agency that folks don't know, or I'm not sure they're aware of, Department of Buildings has one of the most unique jurisdictional capabilities of all mayoral agencies. You know, I always tell folks that in order for the fire department to engage with a property, there has to be some emergency there. In order for the police department to engage with a property, there has to be some crime or some appearance of a crime being committed. With the Department of Buildings, someone just needs to pick up the phone and call 311, and the statements don't even have to be true. Like, the allegations doesn't have to be any factually based allegations. And the Department of Buildings will be at your front door. So that is something truly unique that most folks are not aware of.
I love that. You call them and they will come. There you go. What about you, Caroline? What's unique about the Landmarks Preservation?
I would say for in my department, in the preservation department, so as I said, that we review you know, alterations on the exterior of buildings, and sometimes we need to look at mock-ups. These are structures that go on top of a building on the roof, and we try to see how visible something may be, like an addition on a building. And so we get access to buildings, to the inside of buildings, and to rooftops where like most people probably will not be able to have access to. And we get to do these site visits as part of our job. So I think that it's definitely a perk. And I think one that stands out in my mind is having access to the Woolworth building and going all the way to the very top, where you feel like you're going to get blown off the building, but it was really at the tippy top, and I could at least say I did that it was unique, and now I think it's luxury apartments, and so I'll never have that chance again.
Thank you. So doors open for you when you work for Landmarks. Okay, and what about you, Farhan? What's unique about your agency?
I mean, I would start with New York City has the best bagel and best pizza because of the water. No, but you can Google this, right? I mean, it is true. I mean, there's some research was done, right? But you can definitely Google this and check it out. But I mean, DEP, I mean, it's environmental protection, just the name of it. But, you know, the agency I was alluding to earlier is responsible for managing the largest water supply system, right? So our primary mission is to supply clean drinking water to residents of City of New York. The city's water supply system provides more than 1.1 billion gallons of water to 9 million residents every day. So that's some crazy operations that we have at DEP. Our water comes from 19 reservoirs and 3 controlled lakes. They are located mostly in upstate New York, Catskill Mountains, and Hudson Valley region. So when you turn on your water, just imagine this water's journey can begin up to 125 miles away from where you live, right? So another interesting fact is city's water system is gravity fed. So gravity alone is sufficient to push the water into buildings 6 stories high. So we don't need any pumps or anything like that to pull the water up if it's a high-rise building and whatnot. We also have we manage 14 wastewater treatment plants. These are located throughout the city, and they treat about 1.3 billion gallons of wastewater daily. And we have other responsibilities such as air and noise control. We have a sustainability program with the agency. So I could go on and on, but just wanted to highlight those couple of things here for everybody.
Thank you so much. So I'm sure when everybody starts turning on their water, they will be thinking of DEP, so they'll get familiar with that agency. How about you, Michelle? And what's unique about DEWIT?
I'll put the two together. One of the things that people don't know. So 311 actually falls under DEWIT. So that's one factor there. I know everyone sees the link boxes that are on the street. Those were a product of DoIT replacement of telephone systems, because DoIT also holds the payphone franchise. So when payphones basically became irrelevant, they tried to figure out, well, what can we do with these spaces? And they decided to turn to those link boxes. Those link boxes are very helpful. There's a lot of neighborhoods with people who don't have Wi-Fi that actually use those link Wi-Fis as their source of access to the internet. Those boxes are used by many people, sometimes not necessarily for the best cases, but they are used, and they are in and are growing in different neighborhoods. One of the unique factors of 311, as you know, 311 is the service for all city agencies. So if you're trying to, a lot of people don't know what agency to call when they have an issue. So you pick up the phone, you call 311, and they will direct you to the right agency, either through a request for service or just for information. We gather that information from all the agencies and keep them in one place so that we can provide that information. Also from the DoIT side, we provide service to a lot of agencies. So if you think of to bring the terms down, sorry. If you think of Amazon services, how Amazon provides services for businesses on a small scale, DoIT provides services to many agencies. So it's kind of a similar situation. And I think that makes us very unique in that way.
Thank you, Michelle. And Rochelle, what about you? What about your agency? What's unique about it?
Yeah, so DOT is huge. It's 5,000 people, and it encompasses not only the planners, which is where I kind of sit, and the civil engineers who keep the bridges up. There are also people who manage our fleet, which is one of the biggest fleets in the city. So our fleet has many different types of vehicles, and the entire city is moving towards reducing our emissions and our carbon footprint. So people who are managing fleets at DOT have this really interesting challenge of trying to get all of these vehicles to be either electric or carbon neutral, which is a really interesting challenge to have in this day and age. We also have sign shops. So all the signs that you see on the street are built here in-house and are printed here in-house. And as well as all of the signals. So when you think about traffic signals, someone is building those in New York City, in some of our warehouses and some of our shops. So I know there's a lot of interest about metal welding. I will let you know that DOT, you can come on over. I'm sure that folks would be happy to have you. So you can do anything at DOT that relates to anything on the street. So whether or not you want to do planning or engineering, you can also work in one of our shops and work that way.
Thank you, awesome. And then Jade, other than DDC popping up in all of the neighborhoods, what else is unique about the agency?
Yeah, so aside from popping up in your neighborhood, and with the exception of Landmarks and DOB, who are regulatory agencies for us, so they basically oversee the work that we do and make sure we have to go to them to make sure that we're compliant with codes, et cetera, and they set forth those codes. But with the exception of them, everybody else, all my colleagues, DDC serves every last one of them, and maybe DoIT. We work with them hand in hand on projects as well, but the DOT, the DEP, those are our client agencies. So sometimes when DOT and DEP don't have the capacity to do a project, the DDC will inherit the project or be assigned the project to execute the project. And we work along with our sister agency to make sure these facilities are delivered on time and on budget. So we have a pretty diverse portfolio, if you will. We are selected engineers and architects. We were established back in the 90s to be the premier delivery method for the city and the city's infrastructure and public buildings. So we get to kind of see, there's a broad range of things that we get to see in terms of like our clients, our NYPD.
Jade, I think you're breaking up a little
our
bit.
department, et cetera. So, yeah.
Okay. And it's great. Thank you, Jade, for making, we can hear you clearly now. thank you for making that connection that we are 80 different agencies, but we're pretty much one city, one team, right? We support each other in so many different ways. And that's, what's great about working with the city. You're not just shielded and doing what you're doing. You have opportunities to work elsewhere. So, Jade, since we're on you, let's stick with you. What did you study in school, and how does it contribute to what you're doing right now in your career?
Sure. So I went to school, undergraduate, to Temple University in Philadelphia, and I went there for civil engineering. That took 4 years, and to be honest, I did not know going into college that's what I wanted to do. Wasn't sure that that's what I wanted to do, but I was always good in math and science, and I had a lot of encouragement my senior year from some mentors that I had in various different places to look into engineering. And so I started looking into it. And I always wondered as a kid, how things are built, how structures are built. And I figured civil engineering was the best way to go to follow that path through. So I graduated with a bachelor's of science in engineering. And then I got my professional engineering license actually just recently, but that's what I studied in school. And on a day-to-day, my job is mostly management, but I do have the opportunity with DDC to do some design work as well, which is very fun, in conjunction with some engineers at DEP and DOT, et cetera, just to make the city a better place. And I work very closely with landscape architects too. Hey, Rochelle.
Thank you. Since you sent it over to Rochelle, how about we go with you? What did you study in school, and how does it tie into what you're doing right now?
Yeah, and shout out back to Jade. Congrats on getting your PE. So I studied landscape architecture in my undergrad. And I decided to study landscape architecture because, like Jade, I was interested in understanding how environments get built and how the world around us is constructed. Landscape architecture is unique in that it blends the technical field of architecture with the natural environment. So it's kind of looking all around the building, under the building, on top of the building sometimes, and understanding how how natural systems can work together to make really beautiful or really productive spaces. So after my undergrad, I worked in urban agriculture for a little while. That's when I fell in love with the working with people part. And I realized that there was such a deep connection between the built environment and the people who live and work in the built environment. So that kind of led me to, that eventually led me to this job at the DOT, because I was working in school environments after I graduated in urban agriculture, and I wanted to continue working in school environments throughout my career. So here I am at DOT, still working with people, and instead of looking at all the natural areas around buildings, I look at streetscapes, which is another way to think about how do we organize space, how do we construct spaces that are beneficial to everyone who uses them.
Thank you. And what about you, Michelle? What did you study in school, and how does that tie into what you're doing right now?
So unlike everyone else who kind of knew what they wanted to do, I actually went to Brooklyn College, and I got my undergrad degree in philosophy, of all things, with a minor in computer science. I always knew I had that interest, but it was just a little heavy on me at the time. So I kind of went into the philosophy major. I started working for a private company. I think I worked there for about 10 years. And then moved over to do it because of 9/11 changes to Jersey. I couldn't do that commute. I came back to New York. So I started with do it in 2006 and got my master's in management and leadership because I realized that all the stuff that I was doing was kind of leading towards management. So I wanted to make sure I understood how that works. So I got my master's in at CUNY School of Professional Studies in management leadership. And I think it was the best thing I did because it helped me to grow my career in the way that I wanted to.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. And how about Matthew? Did you always know what you wanted to do? What did you study in school, and what are you, how did that tie into what you're doing right now?
No, definitely not. I had no idea. I think even as I was graduating high school, and I would encourage students to, you should be looking still, but that level of anxiety that you feel as you're graduating, try to try not to invest in that. Um, but I used to teach writing at the City College in New York, and then I started to develop internship programs for pre-law students. And then I was writing grants for the school. And then I started working at the Department of Buildings, using those skills and grant writing and program development to work with students who were interested in engineering, architecture, sustainability, construction safety, and I get to meet some of the great students who are actually attending this chat.
Okay, thank you so much. And then I'll go with a different question for you, Matthew. How has your career progressed since you started with the city, or should I say since you started with your agency that you're with right now?
I would say that the level of responsibility, it's intense. It starts out immediately. I mean, I think that the one key difference that we should talk about is between the public and the private sector. I think, and this is something I've talked about with friends as well, it often takes a little bit longer when you're working in the private sector to attain a certain level of responsibility, because there are a great many resources. And I think, with the city, not to say that there are no resources, but there are fewer certainly than in the private sector often. So you usually, when you start a position, you have a lot of responsibility. And I think for, folks who are really ambitious and enterprising and hardworking, that it's very rewarding, because you don't have to necessarily wait many, many years to get a certain level of responsibility.
Thank you. And then Joe, I think same question for you, because I know you started your career and you kind of grew up the ranks there. So can you, walk everyone through how your career progressed?
It's funny, Matt was talking, and Matt is so right. Like, you don't have to wait to get additional responsibilities. They kind of just throw it on you. For me, my career has progressed tremendously over the 14 years that I've been here, right? So I started off with the Department of Buildings as a senior zoning officer, working in the inspection units. And I have, as a result of functioning in that role, it has led me to other positions and other levels of responsibilities within the department. So I went from senior zoning officer to supervisor to assistant chief to deputy director, executive director, and now assistant commissioner. So I would say it has been quite rewarding for me.
Thank you so much. And showing that there, you may be at one agency, but it doesn't mean that you're doing the same thing. And even if you want to do the same thing, that's your choice, right? You have the opportunity to do so. Caroline, how about you? How has your career progressed since you started with the city?
Well, I started with Landmarks through fellowship. Actually, I was a project fellow, and that was through while I was in grad school. I originally my undergrad was in finance. I had a bachelor's in finance, and so I worked on Wall Street for a little bit and realized I absolutely hated it. So you think you want to do something in life, and you realize it's not what you want to do. And I thought I wanted to change the world and do something different, and I did. And I went to Panama to be in the Peace Corps and realized that I'm a city girl and I couldn't handle it. And I came back, did some soul searching, ended up in grad school at Columbia in the historic preservation program there because I realized my love for history, New York City history and architecture. So that said, while I was in grad school, there was this internship program, and I was a fellow in the research department. And from there, I ended up being an intern in the preservation grant. The grant program there, which then led to a full-time position in the preservation department. And since then, I've been with this department, and then I am also now a coordinator in the grant program. And then on top of that, I do a lot of outreach to different neighborhoods throughout the 5 boroughs to talk about landmarks and to see if any owners would be interested in our grant program.
Awesome. Thank you, Caroline. And what about you, Farhan? how was your career progressed while starting with the city?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see there are a lot of 14 years veterans in this panel, right? At least 3 for them. And I think there's a reason, right? So once you start seeing and working with the bright people that you work with, and you have access to cutting edge technologies, right? You feel like you want to grow in that organization. So for my case, 2 years into working in DEP, I had the opportunity to work with smart metering project. So basically, I mean, you probably see it in your resident outside. There's a little meter there that says NYC DEP. Those are the meters that we have, actually 862,000 of them, plus a little more. So those are the meters that actually collect your water use data and wirelessly send over the data to our database here, so we could, make sure we have accurate billing for our customers, and also make sure that, we could give them some predictive analytics, such as if they have any leaking toilets and things like that, because we're constantly seeing the water use, and we're seeing what type of water is being used in the household. So just seeing that, right, is, I decided I'm going to grow in this organization, right? And think about it today, I think Con Ed and National Grid, I think these private companies are still, I think they're catching up with the smart metering and this Internet of Things, the IoT devices and whatnot. So, and I just decided, and since then I just grew with this organization, and I decided not to leave for private or, and stay with this organization.
Did you say you Googled?
Thank you. And we're going to just push the questions a little bit. Rochelle, how important is doing internship, fellowships, or volunteer to somebody who's, looking to get into any kind of career, but even your specific industry?
Yeah, so internships are great experiences to kind of get the lay of the land at DOT. A lot of my colleagues started out as interns and got to know the way around and figured out, where they really, what team they wanted to be on. So some people interned in the pedestrian unit, did pedestrian planning, but then decided that actually they wanted to do transit planning and they wanted to work on bus routes instead. So interning is so important because you understand the landscape and you're able to really figure out where you would fit best. And you can also make connections while you're there. So I would definitely recommend interning and doing any fellowships that might be available to anyone interested.
Okay. Would you like to add to that, Jade? How important is internships, fellowships, or any kind of volunteer opportunity?
I am just going to agree with my colleague that it is super important, just because it does give you the opportunity to see, even if it's just personal experience, what you want to do and what you don't. I know there's a lot of pressure, especially around your junior year of high school, to start figuring out what you want to do. And I do think a fellowship or an internship is a good opportunity to say, okay, well, at least I've narrowed it down. I absolutely want to do this, or this is not something that I'm interested in. And you can start to go in different ways. And then it may open up, opportunities that you may not even realize that existed. And it always looks good on resumes, et cetera, when you are going out into the working world after you've completed school, to have those fellowships and internship experiences in the bag. That is something that folks look for when they're interviewing. So it only will develop you in more ways than you can realize.
Thank you, Jade. And you guys heard the team speak about the importance of internships. From DOB, Rachel and Matthew, I know you guys have a few different youth programs going on. Why don't you tell the students or everyone about the different internship programs available within your agency?
Matt, would you like to answer this one?
Sure, yeah. So to add one point on what we were just talking about before, something that's really unique about city agencies is that there's often an intense collaboration between the units, because no unit is functioning as an island. So having that first internship, you learn how to ask for help, you learn how to collaborate productively, how to work through conflict, how to satisfy two goals that might initially seem like they're at odds. So that kind of experience is invaluable, and it's going to help with that student to work transition. In terms of the programs that we have a Youth Leadership Council for Sustainability and Construction Safety that's in its second year. And we have a student, Anthony, who is actually in the program, and he's doing great so far. Now we have about 24 students in that program, and they're all from the career and technical education track. So folks who are interested in mechanical engineering or civil engineering, architecture, sustainability, and then some people who are unsure and thinking about a couple of different career paths. So for the people on here who are saying outright, I have no idea what I want to do, those kinds of academic programs are a good starting place even before an internship. We also have a program called DOB Scholars, which is for CUNY students. So for anybody who's planning on becoming an undergraduate soon, definitely reach out to us about that.
Thank you so much.
And also, I had a question about accreditation in engineering and architecture programs. For students who are in the college admissions process, if you're thinking about going to school for engineering or architecture, please make sure your program is accredited by a professional accreditation board, because if your program is not accredited, you won't be able to take the exams needed to be a professional engineer or a registered architect. For architecture, it's the National Architecture Accreditation Board, and for engineers, it's the National Accreditation Board for Engineering and Technology. And if you go to an accredited school, it does give you a leg up in getting an internship or applying for certain jobs, because certain internship programs and jobs require that you go to an engineering or architecture school that has an accredited program.
Thank you, Rachel. That's really good information for everyone to know, for us to know as well. Michelle, what about Do It? Were there any kind of internships or youth programs within your agency?
Yeah, so I know a couple of summers, I don't know what the status is now, but I'm going to try to get that information. But a couple of summers, they have had high school internships as well as college internships that allow students to come in and get a feel for technology, because a lot of people may have one vision of technology, and then when they get into it, it's very different. Another program that Do It had was a fellowship program, which is with students that are in school. And I personally have had 3 fellows work underneath me in different roles. And I got to tell you, it was probably the best experience, not only for them, but also for me, because they come in with fresh ideas. They're eager to work. It was a really, really good experience. So I would say, initially, definitely the high school internships are great. It gives you a way to look at things, especially when you're trying to make decisions about where you're going with yourself. And then, of course, with the fellowships, it's just an amazing experience. And I wish I had had that opportunity when I was at that, at that age.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. And Caroline, I know you have a few different youth programs within your agency, correct?
Well, we have one. We currently have 2. We have the Project Fellowship, and that is actually more on a graduate level. And then we have the internship in the grant program, and that's usually available to college level students.
Thank you. And Florent, what about DUP? What internship or youth programs are available?
So we do have summer internship program. I encourage everybody to, we post this in our website, nyc.gov/DEP. Also, you could follow us in social media, in LinkedIn. I think that's where the information is posted. Again, we have summer internship program. Also, we have programs that gives the student college credits, right? But I could get more information and share that with you, Katie, and that could be sent over to the students afterwards.
Thank you. And a great thing to recognize is that the city has citywide internship programs, such as the summer internship programs or the public service corps program, but each agency also have their individual programs. So there's several opportunities for you to get internships. So don't just, focus in one area, do your research, look at the different agencies, look at your interests to see what opportunity is there.
Katie,
So a lot of people like to, yes.
oh, could I just wanted to add that you're right that there's other internships, and we also our more recent intern came from the City Core Fellowship, and that's from the mayor's office.
Yes, thank you. And even like with our office, we currently have 3 public service corps interns, that are working with us, and we've always had different types of interns. So we do find value in the people that are able to work with us and contribute to the work that we're doing. A lot of people always talk about the hard skills that's needed. Like you got to get the degrees, you got to get the experience, you have to have a license. What about some of the soft skills? We can talk about those. Maybe, Rochelle, what do you think are some of the soft skills that people should, try to develop as they go into the workplace?
Yeah, that's a great question. This reminds me of a job that I had in college, which was manning the front desk of essentially the Welcome Center and responding to emails, answering phones. I think honestly that job was the most important job I've ever had and ever will have, because I learned how to write an email, be very succinct, be very descriptive, and also how to talk to people from all different cultures and all different ways of life on the phone, how to communicate and how to conduct myself in that way. So I think that just honing your writing skills right now is great. Understanding kind of a professional language is also really interesting. So if you know someone in the professional realm who can help you and practice writing emails back and forth, I think that's a great way to really stand out as you start your career.
Thank you. And what about you, Michelle? Some people usually think IT, you don't really need to have that. You just focus on the technical skills.
Yeah, I would say for IT, and it's interesting because if you've ever had any kind of customer service experience, whether it's in a clothing store, in anything, it's a plus. Customer service, no matter what job you have, drives you to maintain a level of calmness, especially if you're face fronting, and an ability to respond to people. And I think that's very essential. Like she just mentioned, being able to write emails in a very concise way. Nobody wants to read a full page, but you also have to be very to the point, but not in a way that people take it incorrectly. So it's a very, very important skill, knowing how to write that email, answering phones. Even if no one calls you, that one phone call that you have needs to be, proper. And I think one of the things that and when I talk about my different background in philosophy, I know people always say, well, how did you get there? There's something about logic that you don't get from math, but you get from philosophy classes. It kind of builds it into, but in the technology field, being able to follow a situation, because there's a lot of things that I get involved with that I don't really know 100%. But having that logic of understanding that if something happens this way, this is the next step. What's the next logical thing you would do? What are the next areas you would look at? I think it's really, really important for technology.
I'm sorry, Michelle. Can somebody? Thank you. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah. So I was just saying, being able to follow a situation, that logic that comes from that is really important, because no matter what you do, you'll always run up on I call them issue or problem. And being able to problem solve, I guess that's what it is. It's a problem solving skill set. That's really, really important. You don't have to know what it is all the time, but being able to follow it from A to B to C is very, very important.
Thank you so much. And this is not only from somebody who's doing the work, but somebody who is a part of a hiring committee and hire people. So this is what, we look for. Jade, do you have anything that you'd like to add to that? In terms of what are some of those soft skills people should look at especially when they're looking into your industry?
Sure. I mean, I don't know if it's specific to my industry or not, but just general life advice is just learning how to listen and learn, because I mean, that's such an important part of communication. So many people think communication is the ability to articulate point, but the other half of it is being able to receive and to break down the information that you're getting. And you can learn a lot just by learning to listen to people effectively and actively. And it will take you far in your career. As you get into these industries and you're brand new, there's going to be people at all levels in the industry that will be able to help you provided that you have the right attitude and are an active listener, you can really glean a lot from it.
Thank you so much. And the next question for Caroline. Name one thing that you wish you knew before you started in your career?
I would say that I really wish that I had done this a lot sooner in my life. I really wish I had known exactly what I wanted to do, because I realized, I feel like I started very late in my career, I would say. I mean, I kind of started it at Atlanta. I went back to grad school in my early 30s. That said, it wasn't too late, but I guess I wish I had known, but that it's never too late. If you realize you're doing something that you're not happy with, absolutely do some soul searching, because I realized exactly what I wanted to do and ended up in a job that I absolutely love, in the city that I grew up in. And I'm always learning. And now that my role has evolved, I get to meet so many people in so many boroughs, that has taken me to so many places that I would otherwise have never been to.
Thank you. And what about you, Farhan? Is there anything that you wish you knew before you started your career?
I mean, there are a lot of things, but one thing I would definitely highlight is finding a mentor early. The mentors, they can help you, provide you guidance, and you can greatly benefit for building a successful career, right? So they can help you envision where you want to be, not only from like 1 year from today, 2 years, 3 years, because they've been through those experiences, right? So, and they could tell you about the obstacles that may stand in your ways, right? So, I mean, that's one thing I wish I would have started earlier when I started my career, but, now I do. I have, a couple of mentors. As always, I talk to them whenever I need some help, guidance, no matter what it is, right? But it has been very beneficial for me to having mentors to guide me throughout my career.
Thank you. And for me as a DCAS employee, one thing I wish I knew more about was the civil service exam and the fact that we had to take them to become permanent employees. So Joseph, in terms of the civil service exams, like how important are they if somebody wants to, be gainfully employed with the city and move up in different positions and become permanent? You're on mute if you're talking.
I just realized that. I think the civil service exams are extremely important. But I would have to preface that by saying if your intention is to make a career out of city service, then yes, the civil service exams are extremely critical. If your intention is to come into city service, obtain the experience, and then go back to the private sector, then I would say the civil service exams are not as critical. But if you are planning to make city service a career, it is critical because one, helps you secure the position that you're in. It allows you to move through different levels of responsibilities and titles in the advancement of your career. So I would say, yes, you should, if city service is certainly going to be your career, then civil service should be hand in hand with that career path.
Thank you. And Jade, I know you're very friendly with the civil service exams. Tell us about your experience with them.
So I actually did not start as a technical civil servant. I came in through the back door, I like to say. And then I took a civil service exam much later. I took maybe 3 or 4 of them, and it was a pretty lengthy process. But now I'm a permanent employee. Yay! But yeah, I do think it's critical, just to piggyback off what Joseph was saying. If it's something that you think you want to do long term in terms of city service, it's so pertinent, especially now with what's happening with the city and just with the world in general. You really can stake your claim as a permanent civil servant. It's important to just take an exam as you see them posted, and I'm sure you guys will get into the specifics and how the exams get posted and to route people where they're available to take them.
Thank you. And the civil service exams means permanency, means job security, right? That's what
Can I
we're
just add something
aiming
to
for.
that? Can I just add something to that really quickly?
Yes, go ahead, Michelle. Yes, go ahead.
You guys have this opportunity right now to get us this information. I wish I had this information when I was in high school. I would have took a test right out of high school. I honestly, I didn't. I mean, I was in my 30s when I started here. I wish I had started that much earlier. So if you have that opportunity, do it.
Thank you. And you can be as young as 16 and a half to take an exam, right? The process takes a while, but you take it and forget it. That's all you have to do. Rachel, did you want to add something else?
Yes. Take any exam that you qualify for, even if it's something you're not interested in right now. It can lead to other opportunities down the road. And who knows, you might discover that you might be interested in a certain position and a certain agency. So keep an open mind in regards to civil service exams and apply for anyone that you qualify for.
Thank you. I love that. I love all the tips. So one final question that I'll ask for everyone, and go ahead and quick response. So what do you find most rewarding about the work that you do? And we'll start with you, Caroline.
It's the role that I'm in as a coordinator in the grant program. It's been meeting people. I love people. Well, sometimes I do, but for the most part, I love meeting homeowners and individuals and contractors and architects and learning where they're from, where they've been, their experiences. I mean, I've just grown to love my job so much through everyone that I deal with and interact with, both with my colleagues at work. We are a very passionate bunch of people. This is being a preservationist. It's not about the money. You really need a passion for history, for architecture, and people. And we deal directly and work with DOT and DDC, and I would say that it would be the same, because any of us can go to the private sector. I fled the private sector, and this is where I want to stay.
Thank you. We're going to take her with us anywhere we go. Farhan, what about you? What's most rewarding about your job?
I'm very proud of the public service, right? So that's however small role that I play in the organization is very rewarding at the end of the day, that you are part of an organization that supplies clean drinking water to the greatest city and citizens of the city of New York, right? So the men and women that in DEP work tirelessly to ensure that we all have that clean and safe drinking water. And I'm just honored and proud to be part of that team.
Awesome, thank you. Matthew, what about you?
Getting to connect students to brilliant people. I have a good little anecdote about that since Joe was on the call. One of the very first things that I did with the agency was we had this program called DOB Scholars for CUNY students, and we had 250 people show up, and it was almost to the point where we couldn't control it. And then Joe started talking, and just seeing the expression on everyone's face where they were really hearing him, they were really connecting. And I think a whole lot of people got to see a potential career path for themselves after that night. And it was great to sort of be a conduit for that, to bring a brilliant person in front of students interested.
Awesome, thank you. What about you, Michelle? What's rewarding about your role?
So I'll state a situation that's not necessarily my situation, but the experience of the agents at 311 during this pandemic. There were a lot of people who called 311 during lockdown because they had not spoken to anyone in weeks, months, and they made that phone call and were able to get services such as food, which the city provides to people who didn't have access to food. And it's just knowing that we're serving city, residents in this way has just been, it's always been one of the passions for me as long as I've worked with 311, because I know that they provide a service that people just don't have access to.
Thank you, Michelle. And what about you, Rochelle? What's rewarding about your role?
Yeah, I really believe in Vision Zero as a program to make sure that everyone who uses the streets is safe. And I think that to me, that's an equity issue. That means that everyone in every neighborhood, regardless of race, income, should be able to have access to safe walking, cycling, driving facilities. I'm currently working on a small side project in affiliation with some folks at DOB to consolidate gas station driveways or just driveways in general in the vicinity of schools. And this is in response to environments that often are not designed for school-age pedestrians. So for pedestrians who use the street who are not as visible as adult pedestrians. And that to me kind of sums up the essence of everything that I do. It's making sure that our built environment supports everyone who uses it and making sure that they're safe in doing so.
Thank you, Michelle. And what about you, Jay?
Yeah, so one of the most meaningful things, impactful things about my work is that I'm contributing to the built environment of New York City. I'm a born and bred New Yorker, and to know that I am providing buildings that are part of a team, a larger agency that's providing services, essential services to our city on a regular basis is really rewarding. I just came from a ribbon cutting event with Mayor de Blasio just before this, as we opened a COVID Center of Excellence facility in Queens in the Elmhurst section, which was really, if you guys remember, was like one of the hardest hit areas, was an epicenter at the beginning of the pandemic, and to have been able to participate in providing a clinic where it doesn't matter if you're an immigrant, it doesn't matter what your financial background is, that you would be able to go somewhere and have available healthcare to you is just so rewarding to know that folks will be able to get the services that they need, not with just that project, but just in general with all of the projects that we work on. It's just really fulfilling to know that I've been able to serve my city in that way.
Thank you, Jade. And Joseph, what do you find rewarding about your job?
I have to agree with all of my colleagues on this panel. Public service and city service has been the most rewarding aspect of my career in city service. I came from the private sector, and much like Caroline, I did flee the private sector as well. I can't tell you how much satisfaction it brings when you're able to actually sit and meet with members of the public to help them resolve or work through some of the challenges that they may be facing. And even if it is unrelated to your agency, to be able to pick up the phone and contact and assist the agency to put that person in contact with the services that they need, I think that brings me a tremendous amount of joy every day, and hence the reason why I have stayed in city government for as long as I have.
Thank you so much. And finally, Rachel?
I love the fact that I get to make a difference in someone's life pretty much every day. I love the fact that I get to talk to students about the great work, what it's like working for the city of New York. And I love back to changing someone's lives every day. I'm working with students. I'm also working with adults. And the fact that I can change someone's life by giving them a job or giving them an internship, and then they can provide for themselves. They can provide for their families. They're gaining the necessary experience to advance their careers. It's such a rewarding feeling. And I've actually had former interns who've emailed me saying that because I've interned at the Department of Buildings, I received job offers from top construction companies or top architectural firms, and thank you so much for hiring me and giving me this valuable experience. So the fact that I get to change someone's life is what I love most about my job.
Thank you so much. And that's what makes us city employees, right? We want to give back, and we give back in everything that we do. So thank you for giving back and giving us your time to serve on the panel and answering our questions. Really appreciate it. Hopefully everyone was able to learn something new from this. I am now going to turn it over to my colleague, John Bonner, or the team, who will continue with the Q&A, because I know you guys have a lot, and thank you, Reed and team, for responding to some of the questions that we already came up. Turn it back over to you, John. You're on mute.
Questions. A lot of questions were answered inside the chat. Very thank you for Eve, for Gav, Stacy. There are some questions. I know we want to be mindful of time, but to Farhan, there was a question to you specifically. Somebody wants to know that there's a new site on Woodlawn and Jerome Avenue in the Bronx. Is that a part of your agency?
Yes, we have a facility in I think 3201 Jerome Avenue in Bronx, and the other key things is happening in Jerome Park. I think there is a project that DEP is working with the federal government to install fencing and upgrade security infrastructure in Jerome Park Reservoir in the Bronx. So I'm not sure if the question is related to that.
Well, I appreciate it. I just said new site by Woodlawn and Jerome, and it was for you. And I guess for Rochelle, there's a question in regards to DOT. I guess somebody wants to know, is there any welder positions at DOT? Maybe you might know of.
Absolutely. I'm not sure if there are any right now, but there are definitely folks who work in shops at DOT, who work in the sign shop, who might work in the signal shop. And then it just occurred to me that probably the Staten Island ferry would need some welders too. So there are lots of different areas, different pockets of DOT that you could explore for some welding and metalwork opportunities.
Okay, thank you, Rochelle. And for those that have architectural background, I guess on the panel, I guess it could be anyone who has that. I guess there was a question. I guess, would this meeting or webinar be beneficial to achieving that career? Or better yet, do you have any recommendations for somebody who wants to be an architect? Anybody with that background could definitely answer that.
Well, for one thing, I touched on this earlier. Make sure if you go to an architecture school, make sure your school is accredited by the Accreditation Board for Architecture Schools, because if you don't go to an accredited architecture school, you won't be able to sit for the registered architect's exam.
Rachel, can you give us, I'm sorry, Rachel, can you just give us a couple of examples of schools that are accredited? Because there are indeed some in the area that aren't, and I don't think the kids know the difference. Thanks.
Oh, yes, of course. I'll use an example. Columbia University has an undergraduate Bachelor's of Arts program in architecture, but it's not accredited because it's a Bachelor's of Arts. City College has a Bachelor's of Architecture program, and that's accredited. So what you want to look for in your programs are schools that offer a bachelor's degree of architecture, not a Bachelor's of Arts with a concentration in architecture, not a Bachelor's of Fine Arts with an architectural specialization. It has to be a Bachelor's of Architecture program.
Michelle, I guess a quick question somebody asked out there was, I'm not sure if you can answer it, but I guess what was the weirdest or outrageous 311 call you've ever received?
I probably should not say. We do get some, I'll put it this way. So everyone knows 911 is only for emergencies. 311 is for non-emergencies. Residents are very interesting in their description of a non-emergency. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Michelle. And Caroline, just
and that's how you put it diplomatically.
Yeah, that's what I have to do.
Caroline, just a quick one. What is the most, I guess, the oldest historical landmark in the city?
Oh my goodness. I didn't realize I was going to get quizzed. The oldest. Oh, I'm going to get in trouble. I don't know what the oldest, we have like some of the oldest wooden frame houses. I would say in Brooklyn, and I can't tell you. I'm sorry, I don't know that answer.
That's okay. If they have any questions,
And I'll
they can
share our
email us.
website. Yeah, and I'll let you
Yes.
know the.
I've been sharing your websites for everybody who's in attendance, and I want to be mindful of the time. But I guess the last one, Joseph,
Great.
it's not a question, but I guess this is a shout out. There's a Kevin Daniel here that just wants to say hello. His mom is Petra Daniel and Alvin Daniel, so you might know.
I actually do know who they are. Shout out to them too.
Thank you, Joseph. And I guess at this time, I'll turn it over to Stacy. So be mindful of time. We want to thank everyone. And of course, if we haven't gotten to your questions and you have additional questions, inside the chat, and we'll put it again, is our Citywide Recruitment email address. You can always email us and we'll try to give you the answer. But for me, I just want to say thank you for everyone being here. And Stacy, I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you, panelists. Thank you. Thank you. I learned stuff. I might want to switch careers, but thank you so much for that information. Thank you, students, for joining us. Just for being here, you're taking an initiative in the right step to, going forward in your future. I know a lot of you were talking about you want to find jobs, you wanted to find internships. We've placed numerous times the websites to you guys. So please visit them and check out internships, do internships. That's how I was able to get in this position. That's how some of our panelists were able to get in their positions. That gives you the experience you need. So I hope that this session was helpful to you, and definitely I hope to see you guys on our other sessions. And thank you, panelists, for being here, supporting us, working with us. And thank you, Gaviskert, for definitely putting this all together. You're the man. So you guys have a great evening. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. Be safe.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So long, guys.
Michelle, Matthew, Caroline, Rachel, thank you so much. And Joseph in the corner there. Thank you so much, everyone. You guys are awesome. Raymond, thank you, Katie, and everyone behind the scenes, our team as well. Thank you.
Remember our face. We would love to work with you guys again. I'm just saying, we'll put that out there. We'll put that networking out there.
This is the best panel of city workers I've ever seen.
Awesome, Gaviskert. Thank you. You hear that?
You're the best. If you're looking at we're not in person, because I would say everybody, let's go, drinks are on me. But we're not, but still, drinks are still on me.
I'm going to hold you to that. Are we not in the same building? 1 Center Street.
Yes, I am.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
I got your number.
Now you have people collecting, John.
That's all right. I don't mind.
Everyone's a witness here, right?
Yeah, especially Joseph got to be there. Joseph got to be there. If he's not there, then that's it. I'm not on. He has to be there.
Consider it done.
And Gav, of course, bring the mic. We're gonna need that mic right there.
Oh, we got the mic situation resolved, so I'm good.
Oh.
All right, guys.
Joseph?
Have a good evening. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Everyone.
Bye.
Have a good one. Thank you.